Hello everybody, Big 7 here, back for another AFL Supercoach video. This is my round 17 review and I scored 2,488, which represented a down week, lost 66 places to now be sitting at 193 for the season. And look, my top 10 hopes, they were on life support last week. They're now officially dead. So rest in peace to my tracksuit dreams. Still very much in the contention for socks, about 350 points inside the top 1,000. So that'll be the goal going forward. So we'll get into the side and cover up your eyes because it's fake primos everywhere. We'll go, straight down into the forward line. So Josh Dunkley, he was out for the week, meant that I had Seamus Mitchell having to play as my 23rd player, essentially. I only scored 55, didn't watch that game, but hopefully he can bounce back. Right next to him, the fraud that is Bailey Smith. Unfortunately, a completely failed pick. And I'm not too beat up about it because I didn't think it could go this bad, but I knew there was a decent bust potential picking Bailey Smith. At his best, we got 4 weeks of hundreds. We saw 4 weeks of hundreds. I got on the week after that, so it's been a pretty torrid journey. Bailey Smith, he's not being played in the midfield, and even at the start of the year when the full contingent of dogs mids were there, he was still getting 40-50%. And then it peaked once Treloar was injured for a few weeks, and I was hoping that he would be able to cement his spot in that midfield. Not only did he not cement that spot, but he actually has completely lost CBAs. I didn't even check the figure for last week, but I watched the game. He got a couple of CBAs late in the game. And he's just a player that's devoid of confidence, unfortunately. And look, I hope he can find it, but he's not going to find it in my team. Even if Treloar was to get injured again, or any of the dogs mids, there's still so many players that are ahead of him in the pecking order now. Bontempelli, Liberatore, and Treloar if he stays fit, Caleb Daniel, even Jack McRae's leapfrogged him. So unfortunately, Bailey Smith, it's an epic fail. And I need to do something about it. The other fake primo, Sheasel, 65. He was on about 40 odd at halftime, and I think he got moved forward in the second half. So big question marks over whether he can keep his premium status over the back half of the year. Further muddying the waters is that Clarkson, I think, returns to the coaching role not this week, but the week after. So hopefully Sheasel can go back into defence. I'm not sure what North Melbourne are doing, and fingers crossed that it falls my way. Christian Petrarca, 120. It's a concern because the role isn't as a pure midfielder. He kicked 4 goals, so 4 goals straight, and he's not going to do that again. He's normally, very inaccurate in front of goals, and it just seems like instead of averaging 120 is probably going to be his peak if he's going to be getting less CBAs, which is unfortunate. A bit annoying as a Melbourne fan because you lose Clayton Oliver, now you're going to take Petrarca out of the midfield. Bit worried that the midfield gets thumped against Brisbane, so we'll see what happens. Tom Green only 73. He's a really interesting one because he was someone that I was thinking about moving on if I had the trades to do so. Looking at his scoring, so it hasn't been too bad, but if we're looking at ever since Kieran Briggs came into the side, there's a couple 120s against weaker midfields. I guess Adelaide's an okay matchup, and so is Gold Coast. Still, if you had a bunch of luxury trades, I wouldn't be opposed to moving Tom Green on. The player I was advocating for last week, Sean Darcy, he went nuts. But yeah, my trade situation, all I can do is point out the good players. I can't actually, the good punts, I can't actually jump on them, unfortunately. There is a temptation to, get rid of a Shees or get rid of Bailey Smith, go down to zero trades, but I've got to keep at least one. And yeah, Bailey Smith, it just seems like it's going to take a lot to go right for him to um, be good again. So he's the one that's going to go for me. The rest of the promos probably not worth mentioning. Adam Chera, 111, looks bad in isolation, but the decision for me was between Liberatore, Butters, and Chera a couple of weeks ago. So at least Chera has been a relatively successful pick thus far. Vice captain was Lockie Neal, 142. Just take that to the bank. Bontempelli ended up on my bench just because he was the only player that played early, just in case he had some kind of freak injury. I would have been able to swing some players around, and yeah, so the team looks a lot better with Dunkley on field. So if I was to go. Actually, let's just optimize it. We'll see how well it does. No, it still gives me Dunkley on the bench. I'm not even sure if it did anything, to be honest. So Dunkley is an interesting question. I didn't address it in the last video because I didn't realize he was going to be out. I think there's a pretty decent chance that he misses this week. For me, I was never going to trade him last week because one of the limited trade situation, but two, how many players are really on Josh Dunkley's level? I mean, you can say a handful of mids, but my midfield is full. Forward line, I've got everyone. The only one that was really in consideration was Butters, and I think he's a clear step below. Same with McRae. And then in defence, the only one I would be comfortable going to is Sicily, and he missed last week anyway. So if Dunkley is going to look like he's going to miss a long period of time, say we get news that he's going to miss 3 weeks, then I will be very tempted to move him on to Sicily. But I really don't want to use that extra trade because I need to trade out Bailey Smith. So with that in mind, let's just get him out of there. I'm sick of looking at it. So I had 180k left over, which is nice because I can afford pretty much every good forward option. So Caleb Daniel, he's okay. I'm just not completely sold on him. It looks more like a hot patch than a player that's going to go 110 from here. Zach Butters, he's had a down few weeks. If we go through the scoring, yeah, you look at that Melbourne game in North Melbourne, and it's really an aberration. And he did 146 against the Dogs as well. But most of the time, it seems like he's going to be between 90 to 120. Also has a fairly difficult fixture run in the next couple. Carlton, who might be back. We'll see how they go against a good opposition. Collingwood, obviously tough matchup, so it could be a little bit of a red flag, but also, he's done well against the Dogs, who are supposed to be a tough matchup. So Zach might just be one of those players that is matchup proof. He might even lift against some of the tougher teams in the comp. Did score 67 against the Pies early in the year, but that was with significantly less midfield time. So Zach Butters, yeah, I think he's got the dog mentality. So he's definitely an option to bring in this week. Jack McRae, I've already been burnt by Bevo once this year, though. I still think he's a fine pick, probably between 105 to 110 from here. But yeah, it's Bevo, and it's the Dogs. What would be funnier than trading Bailey Smith to Jack McRae and then seeing their midfield times um, reverse? I'm not going to do that. So I think, yeah, Butters is the one that's really standing out to me. Nick Martin is a very strange one. I don't understand how he's scoring this well on a consistent basis in his role. I just haven't watched enough of Essendon, I don't think. Uh, and then, yeah, the rest of the guys not really interested in. Defender, the only option I would want is Sicily, I think. I mean, Luke Ryan's there as well. Um, I'm just not completely keen on him. Seems to do really well when Fremantle is struggling, and Collingwood you would expect to be a good matchup. Fremantle just seem to be very yin yang, like good for a bunch of time, then bad for a bunch of time. I think, Collingwood will be a bad matchup, but then afterwards, West Coast. I mean, their fixture isn't that great, so maybe Luke Ryan can continue scoring well in this role. It seems like a bit of a point chase. He went massive against St Kilda, who um, have been conceding massive scores to defenders. Missed a couple of massive ones recently. It seems like a little bit of a points chase now. I still think he'll go between 105 to 110, but it just seems a bit chasey to mine. So James Sicily is the other one I would love to get in. I'm 50k short of him though. So if I was to go for Sicily, I it would work if Dunkley was out. If I could do Dunkley to Butters, but again, I don't really want to go down to zero trades if I can avoid it. The other option I did briefly consider today was Matt Johnson, and I could afford some defense cover. That would be Jack Bowes at 243k. I'm just not completely sold on him. It's just maybe earlier in the year. He's actually lost money off his starting price. Injury prone. I just don't really love it. I could see it working, but not a trade I really want to make at this point in the season. So, with Sicily, he's out of my price range, unfortunately, which is a shame because I think he'll go 115 plus over the next stretch of games. Has a game against St Kilda coming up, who, as I mentioned before, leak points to defenders, and I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to flip Sheasel out either. I'm a little bit short on that. 10k short, unfortunately. That would be a consideration if I could have afforded it. So I'm just going to have to let Sicily go, and it's a shame. It really is. Missing Sicily, missing Tim English, those two could really hurt me on the stretch home. But ultimately, I've made my bed. I can't leave it now. It's just going to be Bailey Smith to Zach Butters most likely. Hopefully, Butters can find some big scores soon. I do think, even with tough matchups, I think he's relatively matchup proof, and hopefully he can find a big one in the next couple of scores. So I'll do that. I didn't look at midfielders because I've got 8 pure midfielders in there at the moment, so that would be a waste. So Smith to Butters, it takes me down to one trade, which is pretty scary. And I could have held Bailey Smith, but he's scoring like a rookie anyway. So even if I do cop 2 injuries from here, it just means that Seamus Mitchell goes on field. And the way Smith's playing, he could outscore Bailey Smith for the rest of the year from here. So this is what the team looks like. So one trade left. Seamus Mitchell, Matt Johnson should be okay cover, assuming he holds his spot in the side. Otherwise, Seamus Mitchell is the 23rd. Could definitely do worse. If Dunkley was to not play this week, then Seamus Mitchell replaces him. And yeah, we'll go into some captains. So yeah, matchups. Sydney against the Dogs. Errol Gordon, good player. Marcus Bontempelli, good player. I don't mind the Bont in this matchup. Um, I think he's a definite vice captain choice. Tim English, if you had him, I'd consider him also. The vice captain I'm going to go for is Lockie Neal. Only went 142 against West Coast, which I guess some people would be sad about. I think he's a bit of a sneaky one. I'm hoping that he's relatively low vice captain and captain because of Brisbane's record at the MCG. Melbourne, a supposed tough matchup, but I think it's actually a relatively good matchup. Yeah, so 12th ranked for mids. Yeah, so that's all midfielders, I guess. So that would make them the seventh easiest. But also the midfield is significantly weaker. Goodwin has flagged that Petrarca is going to play more forward time, especially having seen it work okay against St Kilda. Although St Kilda were a weaker midfield than this Brisbane Lions outfit. So as a Melbourne supporter, I'm pretty scared of what Neil McCluggage will do and Dunkley if Dunkley does end up playing. And then, yeah, his last four, he has 340s in there. So I'm willing to take the risk on Neil. Matches against Melbourne it's sneaky because it doesn't include the semi-final that Brisbane played at the MCG against Melbourne, and he scored 131 in that game. So I'm hoping Neil goes under the radar, so I can vice captain him. And then my captain is going to be Nick Dacos, playing in the midfield. Fremantle are a side that I think will get walloped at the MCG. So matchups, bad for defenders, but good for midfielders. And Dacos is playing in the midfield, so he can go nuts. He wants to win that Brownlow as well. Last three games, all over 130. I will back him to continue that trend. Other matches to target, Gold Coast and St Kilda. Probably not. Not one to target. The Blues and Port, I think that'll be a close game. But again, yeah, don't have any faith vice captaining or captaining anyone out of that. Geelong and Essendon could go for Stewart down at the Cattery. Merritt could go for him in his form as well. Don't mind either of those. Adelaide against GWS. Laird and Dawson are in play. Although, yeah, I've been burnt by Dawson enough in terms of vice captain and captain. I don't seem to pick him at the right time. So maybe now's a good time to get on him because I'm not doing it. And then Laird, he's burnt some captainers real hard this year, but he's definitely a play this week. North Melbourne Hawthorn. I don't think there's anyone really in that game. Oh, I guess no one in that game worth captaining, I don't think. And then last game, West Coast and Richmond. I think Taranto's a sneaky shout. Last couple have been poor, so that's a minor concern. But it's West Coast, so he could go nuts this game. He's had a few games this year where he's got 140 plus, 118 in the corresponding fixture against West Coast. So, yeah, just those last couple after the bye, a little bit of a turn off. But I could see the captaincy working for Taranto this week also. So, yeah, that pretty much sums up everything from me. Let me know how you guys are going in the comments section. And if you have any questions, make sure to drop them down below. Hopefully your season's going well. Hopefully a bit more to play for than myself. I feel like I'm just in an awkward dead spot where I can't really push hard. It doesn't make sense to push hard because what am I pushing for? I would love to get Sicily this week and push hard that way, but I think, yeah, there's too much downside in my position. If there was upside of a tracksuit, $1,000 to play for, then sure. But I think I'm just gonna sit on my hands and take my KFC voucher and demolish that. So yeah, once again, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.